30 to 40% of people will end up having a heart attack, and it's not blood vessel plaque.
Yeah. It's like you have your car in park, but you've just got your foot on the gas, and it's just like, the engine is revved constantly.
Every system of the body gets affected. Your nervous system interacts with your immune system. It interacts with your gut. It interacts with your hormone production, right? The more we drive this sympathetic output, the more we see the downward spiral. We're entering the funnel of chronic illnesses.
I was seeing a report on this for all of these different devices, these monitoring devices and wearables, and sales went crazy over Christmas this year. It's interesting to people, all the MAHA movement, everybody's all interested in health. But just wearing a couple of different wearables myself, and then doing some deeper research with just some of the education and training I've had through A4M with gut and all the talk around sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. And then you have these wearables that talk about heart rate variability and vagal tone and all these terms that I think a lot of people need broken down. Everybody's always historically talked about food and diet, which is important, cholesterol, which is not important, but inflammation, stress, all of those things. So I think it'd be a good conversation to have to kind of break this down. People are wearing their wearables, and even my daughter's like, what does this HRV thing mean, Mom? So yeah, let's talk about that.
Sure. Well, I got 2 of them on right now, and I wear a third. And, part of that's just, my role as Chief Science Officer of Lifetime, I've got to stay on top of what's going on in wearable technology.
Absolutely.
So before we talk about wearable technology, strengths and weaknesses, I think the first thing is, well, what are we trying to measure?
Yeah. And why?
And why? So, sympathetic nervous system, parasympathetic nervous system. Turns out your body's got 2 halves, and we need a sympathetic nervous system, but that sympathetic nervous system is supposed to be a pulse. Like when you need to be under fight or flight, or when you need heightened attention. It's not bad. It's just when you get stuck in your sympathetic nervous system, that's where we can start to measure, well, are you stuck with an elevated heart rate, which we'll go through all these, your 2-minute heart rate recovery from exercise. Where is your heart rate variability, which everybody thinks your heart's supposed to beat like a metronome on time, boom, 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 always exact. And really, the healthiest heart has variability. So heart rate variability would be the variability beat to beat that's occurring. And you can measure that, you can train that. There's varying degrees of accuracy on wearable devices, so I want to be able to go through that. But it turns out that the sympathetic nervous system, when it's dominant, you can almost think of it as pro-inflammatory. You have something called the vagal brake. So think about, brakes on your car. Your vagus nerve is driven by the parasympathetic nervous system, and it helps us to counterbalance the fight or flight response.
Yeah.
And it turns out that the parasympathetic nervous system can be thought of as more anti-inflammatory. So you need both.
Right.
You need to know when you need to be alert, fight or flight, sympathetically driven, maybe in the morning when we're supposed to get up and get to work. And at the same time, we're supposed to dial that down and have the parasympathetic nervous system start to take over. So there's that balance that has to occur.
And there's so much, we could go so many ways with this because, we've talked about this a lot. I see this, you brought it to my attention and myself several years ago, and I hadn't really ever thought about what it's like to be constantly in fight or flight. You gave such a great analogy. You said, Terri, it's like you have your car in park, but you've just got your foot on the gas, and it's just like the engine is revved constantly.
That's right.
And that was such a great analogy for me because internally, that's how I felt.
Exactly.
And then when I started really exploring stress response, because of course, we do hormones in our clinics and everybody's stressed and they have anxiety and, some depression. And I started kind of seeing this. I'm like, everybody is in this sympathetic dominant state constantly.
Right.
So why, I know why that is, but we can break down why that is. I mean, we're constantly going. Our brains aren't shutting off.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons, right? I mean, think of, I hate using things like when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But when I was a kid, it was...
We're the last generation probably that could say that term.
Well, yeah, because black and white TV.
Yep.
Only 3 channels.
Yep.
No cell phones.
Yep.
No constant streaming of 295 channels.
Yep. With
decisions all the time on what should I be looking at. Right. Think of how much stimulus, traffic lights,
constant
7 days
access to emails,
everything.
What happened
Text
before
messages.
emails? We had to wait on a physical thing or a phone call.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. So obviously what's happened is there's been this ramping up of a primitive nervous system in a modern world. And, it's not like culturally this wasn't known. It's why meditative practices have been taught for thousands of years. It's why, Tai Chi has been around for thousands of years. Yep. How do we calm the busy mind? And it's not just your mind. You had mentioned before, we got started, the gut-brain axis. Yes. And you have something called the enteric nervous system.
Right.
And when you're sympathetic dominant, it changes the inflammation signaling. It changes the milieu or the terrain of the gut. It changes the peristalsis of the gut. And it's no wonder when we are eating foods that help us have more comfort, because when you're under sustained fight or flight,
I'm glad you're
you
want.
I was
going to go there if you didn't.
Yeah, you want sugar, you want carbs, you want sweet, salty, crunchy, hedonistic response to layer a little alcohol on top. And that disrupts the gut microbiome. And it's no wonder we're seeing more SIBO, more H. pylori, because it's
I have both, by the way. I was shocked when I did my gut map. I know you're not shocked because you know my life. But I was like, what? I eat healthy I don't go for the sweets and the salty, but you've mentioned a few other things that I try to do to calm. But I'll tell you, it's as an aside, and we can kind of lead into it because you already said it. I have really been mindfully practicing meditation twice a day for the last 6 weeks. And I'll be interested to see when I redo my gut map test, what shifts and changes.
Oh, I can tell you, I've had people with full out, I still remember this, an executive for a company in Japan that I used to lecture for. He had ulcerative colitis. And I would talk to him about what he could do, hey, let's do a blood test. Let's see what we can do. Nah, I'm not going to do that. One time I talked to him and I said, could you do something for me? Could you box breathe for 3 minutes, 3 times a day? So box breathing, basically a way to drop the diaphragm, turn on your parasympathetic nervous system. It regulates that vagal tone that you're looking for. I came back the next year to do a talk at their international event, and he came up to me and he said, my gut's completely better.
Amazing.
So he was the head of all sales for a company that had products in 46 countries.
Yeah. A lot of stress.
Lots of stress, lots of responsibility.
Yeah. Right.
But the reality was, when you box breathe, and you can do this a variety of ways, but 4 to 5 seconds in, hold it 4 to 5 seconds, 4 to 5 seconds out, think about the stress that you just took on that you're letting go of, and then hold for 4 to 5 seconds, and then repeat that a box, and be grateful at the end of 3 or 4 minutes for your life. And
3 to 4 minutes.
Good.
It's not that long.
And I would have people do it before you go to lunch. Just do that.
It'll help your digestion too.
Exactly. Yeah. Release the morning, get home from work before you get into the house. And if you have kids, you got 3 kids attacking you and everybody's telling you what they need to do and you're getting all revved up. Breathe out the work day. And then before you go to bed, take care of the evening, reset that nervous system. It's like a circuit breaker box. It really is. I try to equate that with folks. Is like, once you flip the circuit on being sympathetic dominant, basically your brain changes. It's called allostatic load. It changes the way you do hormone signaling. It changes the way your nervous system operates. It changes the way your gut functions. Virtually every system of the body gets affected. And so getting back to these wearables, why are they valuable? Because you have to understand how important it is, why it is cool to do wearables.
Right.
I learned really quickly that I love my Apple Watch for heart rate. I love it for tracking steps. I kept looking at heart rate variability going, there is no way. I just did a 2-mile interval run at 65. I can out-train most people half my age. And I know how to rest. And I know my resting heart rate's under 50. This heart rate variability thing is not working for me.
Mm-hmm.
I put on a strap called a Morpheus strap. And it's a one lead, EKG basically, right? But you really can get
true
accurate heart rate variability. And all of a sudden my heart rate variability was, almost triple.
Yeah.
And I got, okay, now I got to start looking at this.
Oh, it's like,
right?
because I've had, and then of course I said this before, but we have a, one of those fancy sleep number beds.
Right.
Honestly, I really should. Then I get all stressed out about all the 5G, but then I'm like, gave up on it. But
it doesn't matter.
In the sleep number bed, and got the Oura ring on. I got my sleep buds so I can block out snoring noise. Like I'm just 5G.
You got 25G networks around your house anyway. It doesn't matter, right?
But I'm like, how can a bed accurately give you a heart rate variability through a mattress and then a mattress topper? I don't know.
And I think, look, all data is good data to some extent. I started wearing a Whoop because I wanted to understand the latest Whoop technology. I think it even comes closer on measuring things like strain. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I've had to learn, I think you had to learn this too. I'm not sure, but did I ever talk to you about overtraining, like training too much?
You did.
I'm trying to remember, but
you did.
Yeah. I love it because it's showing me, wow, you really trained hard today. You should cut back tomorrow, do more restorative things, stretch, yoga, Pilates, take a walk.
Tell me that, but I don't know how accurate it was. It tracked with how I felt though.
Yeah. No, I think Oura Ring does a good job on that too. Like strain basically. I think resting heart rate, you get pretty accurate. I've tracked them, 2 at a time, 3 at a time. See pretty good compatibility. Why is resting heart rate so important? So resting heart rate really dictates your future cardiac risk. So if you have a resting heart rate above 62, that means that for every 4 points above 62, you're starting to increase your risk of cardio. So it's important for people to understand that just knowing your resting heart rate, knowing your blood pressure, super important.
Yeah. And everybody's blood pressure is chronically high. I'm just telling you, into the clinic, I saw 20 patients in clinic yesterday, and I probably can count on one hand how many had a decent blood pressure.
Right.
And there's always I was in traffic getting here. I mean, it is, it's that engine just revved up.
And when you're under sympathetic tone, you make more adrenaline and noradrenaline and more insulin. I'm going to start gaining weight and make more inflammatory cytokines and make more lipopolysaccharides. So the gut's going, the blood pressure's going.
But hey, let me just put you on, an ACE inhibitor and a GLP-1 and
how to grow thiazide.
Yeah, and a water pill.
Yeah. And, well, what's interesting about that? So just to kind of, stay on point on the heart rate side is that, and then blood pressures, I have people measure their day and night blood pressures because I want to know, are they dipping or not dipping? Because if they're not dipping, I mean, your body's supposed to go into rest mode at night. And I've made it a very hard rule for me that unless it's something that's absolutely important, like the week before A4M for me, American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine, I've got 18, 20 hours of presentations that I have to review that I'm giving. I'll probably work past 7 o'clock, but I traditionally now, 6:30 is my line in the sand.
Good for you.
I just don't work anymore because what I found is, and I can show you on my app, my sleep efficiency, I'm at 93 to 96% efficient. So even if I'm only sleeping 7 hours,
It's good sleep.
It's really good sleep, and I feel rested in the morning. And I think those are things that people aren't aware of. Should my blood pressure go down at night? Yes, it should. If it's not going down at night, maybe you need to start doing things like meditation or box breathing.
Yeah.
Could be low magnesium. Maybe you need to take some theanine or Belora, right? You may have to take something to dampen you initially.
We'll talk about the supplements because I think that's important. The one just clarifying for the listeners is on resting heart rate. When is it best to measure that? What, what is it? Because I see my resting heart rate like, at night from my wearables. And then the other side of that question that I always kind of wonder about this that maybe you can help with is sometimes my Aura Ring will say, your lowest heart rate through the night happened way later than it should have, essentially. So maybe take a little time to recover today, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
So break those two down. When is a good time to check your resting heart rate and what should it be? And then this conversation about your lowest resting heart rate during sleep being important, that should be within the first few hours. I didn't really understand that.
Okay, so two things to make it simple for everyone listening is get it before you get out of bed, ideally.
Okay, your resting heart rate.
Yeah, just to kind of that's where the data comes from related to, where's your risk at? Interestingly, think about it, right? If it takes you a long time for your nervous system to turn down that heart rate, right? That means you're still stuck in fight or flight too long. Your nervous system. Now you're working on that. You're meditating the last 6 weeks. I bet you're going to see that number is going to change. And so I think that the biggest thing for people is take your resting heart rate first thing in the morning. Try to do it before you get out of bed. Just take a note of it. I mean, I like right now, I'm super, super excited. My heart rate's at 58.
Oh,
I'm really,
calm down.
I'm telling you, I'm jumping up and down here. And a good heart rate is really to try to get in this. If you can get in the 60s, you're in pretty good shape, low risk.
Yeah.
People don't walk enough. You don't have to go to the gym
Kill yourself.
Yeah. You can walk, and it can have a tremendous impact on your nervous system. Yeah. I think the other thing is 2-minute heart rate recovery.
Okay. Talk about that.
So say you go in the gym, you work out. You stop, you're done. You sit down and you see how many beats a minute your heart rate drops in the first 2 minutes.
Okay.
And you should be at 24 beats in 2 minutes.
Less. Yeah, so say if you had a 140, your ideal would then be 24 beats from that. So 116 is where you would ideally drop within 2 minutes. Why is that important? That's showing how flexible your nervous system is. I was in fight or flight working out. Now I'm at rest. Where's my nervous system at? Got it.
Because you have a lot of people that exercise and they get into trouble where all of a sudden their heart rate accelerates a lot. Say they're running and all of a sudden because they're overtraining, they're getting white tiger syndrome. Now all of a sudden they start to work out and they get inappropriate heart rate elevation. And that's because the nervous system's out of kilter.
Got it.
So heart rate, resting heart rate, 2-minute heart rate recovery, and then heart rate variability, which you can get a chart on heart rate variability depending on your age, what's a good heart rate variability, because it's different as your age.
Well, and I see different wearables give you different metrics of what's considered low, good, above average.
Right.
Yeah, so talk a little bit about that. And I've known about heart rate variability because it's interesting you say that. In my days as high-risk OB nurse, that is the biggest thing we would be looking for when we were monitoring babies is on the monitor, how much is their heart rate variability? And when their heart rate variability started really slowing down, it was a signal that they were in distress.
That's right.
So that makes sense to me. But it's still, and I know what to look for on a heart rate monitor for a baby, but for humans, this is a tough one to break down because again, the wearables seem to give some different conflicting information on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, the trend is, with each decade, you're going to see a drop in what's acceptable heart rate variability. People that are highly trained can have heart rate variabilities in the 70s or 80s. you don't ever want to have one in the teens, which I see. So the lower the heart rate variability, the more the problem. As you cross your threshold into your, sick for me, because I'm solidly in my 60s, if my heart rate variability is at 35, it's considered good. I like to have better than that.
Well, what do these numbers even mean? Because there have been times, especially before I started all the meditation stuff, that mine registered low on all the different wearables.
So
there might be different versions of low, but usually
they were all
low to average.
Yeah.
And what causes that? What causes your heart rate variability to be low, and how can you correct it?
So when you think about it, we always hear this term like autonomic dystonia, right? Like where your autonomic nervous system has got stuck. And it usually, now there's a couple reasons why it could happen. Why I like wearing devices at night is that it shows you if you've got all of a sudden your heart rate's accelerating, which will be a sign of something like apnea, right? Where, you're not breathing, you're not getting oxygen. So your heart has to work a lot faster in order to pump oxygen in blood, right?
Yeah.
It's thought as, hey, we got to get some oxygen into the brain. So it's really nice to pick that up, because I think that's one of the areas that and I'm really big on like in-home sleep apnea devices now is another area I'm really exploring, because I think there's a lot of folks, and you don't have to be overweight. Everybody thinks sleep apnea, you got to be overweight. You could have something called central sleep apnea. What's that mean? Your central nervous system is the circuit breakers are broke.
Yep.
And now all of a sudden you're inducing that. So I think that disturbed sleep, too much stress, overtraining,
taking care of that one.
overtraining, not breathing deep.
That one I don't do a lot. And when you talk about it every time, I'm like, I'm conscious. I'm like, God, we breathe so shallowly.
It's a big problem, actually. Yeah, because you see what happens is you make a lot of lactic acid, right? You don't get a lot of oxygen. Diaphragm gets stuck. When your diaphragm gets stuck because you're shallow breathing, guess what? That's sending a signal to the nervous system to be sympathetic dominant. It thinks we're in fight or flight.
Interesting.
And that's why when you breathe and you drop that diaphragm, the brain goes, parasympathetic nervous system, turn back on. And I'll have people that'll actually feel lightheaded when they first start. They first do it.
They're like,
whoa, wait a second, that really felt good.
Yeah, because their pressure and their heart rate dropped.
Absolutely. So those are key things that will create lower heart rate variability, meaning less variability beat to beat. Your heart's getting stuck in a rhythm that is saying, fight or flight, I'm getting ready for a race. I'm getting ready to defend myself. And so the lower that heart rate variability, the more you can feel comfortable that you are stuck in sympathetic tone.
Yeah.
And I know, it's something I've talked about, for a long time, is the stress response.
Yep. Well, and it's the foundation of everything disease related.
Yeah. Your nervous system, when we hear neuroendocrine immune, my whole point has been for the last 35 years of teaching out of the 42 years of seeing people is it's all connected. All your body's a system of systems.
Yep.
You're only as strong as your weakest organ or system, like the neurovascular system. And if you don't pay attention to it, you can have completely clean arteries.
Yep.
Your lipids are perfect. In fact,
calcium score 0.
You don't have any lipids because you're on Repatha.
Right.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Whatever.
And your brain's shrinking, but that's another story.
Right. But the point being is, you can still have a heart attack because it's about the synchronicity signal from the brain through the nervous system to the heart that's dictating how blood vessels are expanding, contraction, and then also the rhythmicity of the heart related to what's going on and how you've programmed your brain. And that's why it's so important to think about. I think anybody getting any kind of wearable data, I don't care if you get a Fitbit, whatever. If you can get a resting heart rate and you can get a 2-minute heart rate recovery,
That's information.
And you can get a blood pressure cuff for $30 now. Walk into any local pharmacy, you can buy one. Get that morning and night blood pressure. If you have those 3 pieces alone, say you can't afford a more expensive or like the Ultra Human ring. I've had them all. I mean, I wear all of them because it's one of my jobs. I have to do it. Well, I've got 2.5 million members that are into fitness. And I've worn a lot of them. And so, but for very little money, you can get a resting heart rate. You can get a 2-minute heart rate recovery. Easy to get a device that'll do that. You can even get a little finger clip. They're pretty accurate.
With the pulse oximeter?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And you can know a lot about if you're stuck or not. And I think it's as big of a silent killer, right? Heart disease is still our number 1 killer.
Yep.
But the problem is, I think we think of heart disease, we think clogged vessels.
Correct.
We think heart disease, we think cholesterol.
Yep.
And it's as much about the neurovascular relationship between the brain and the heart. You got the estimate is 30 to 40% of people will end up having a heart attack, and it's not blood vessel plaque related.
Yep.
It's the fact the nervous system's off. So I think that the wearables, I mean, you should really lean into understanding, where should my resting heart rate be?
Yep.
Because how common do you see people with resting heart rates in the high 70s or low 80s?
I normally see resting heart rates in the 80s period.
Right.
Even 90s.
Right. And
that's just crazy.
That's just clear risk.
Yeah.
And then when you look at, let's just go like an area you specialize in, because I know you're great with everything, but women in menopause, they lose their estradiol.
Yep.
Their heart rate's elevated because they're nurturing. Look, their 35-year-old child is still their child.
Yep.
Right? Moms are always going to worry. They worry about their spouse. They worry about their children because it's genetically built that way.
Correct.
Marianne Legato, gender-specific medicine, led the way at Columbia, did the brain scans and showed women are more prone to sympathetic stress, to fight or flight response than men actually. So now you lose your estradiol, and estradiol is key to mitochondrial health, and your heart is the biggest mitochondrial organ.
Yep.
You can see all of a sudden why now, postmenopausally, more women die of heart disease than men. And I think one of the untold stories is we're not dealing with their nervous systems.
Correct.
And we're not understanding the importance of estradiol for mitochondrial health, especially in mitochondrial tissue, the mitochondrial tissue, so their heart, and how it can continue to beat. And they're low in magnesium. You need magnesium to make your heart beat. And I think we just think of heart disease still as, it's a man dying of a heart attack at 45.
Because he's overstressed and or he's overweight. Yeah.
Low testosterone.
Yeah, exactly. You're speaking my language here, of course, because that is something I see, and what drives me crazy is these women are, unfortunately, a lot of them placed on statins, which do nothing for anything, right? As we know, especially there's not a single solitary study on females that shows a benefit for statin therapy.
You can't even say the data is kind of strong against it because there's no data.
There's no data anyway.
You can't point one way or the other.
But the nervous system is definitely a key piece of it. And, the other thing that I thought about in addition to women is what we're seeing even in the younger population of cardiovascular disease, younger and younger, and even in some younger men.
Absolutely.
So, how we're talking about stress and heart and all of these things, but this isn't just an adult problem. This is a young person problem as well.
And when we think of, kind of heart disease, and once again, it's no surprise. It's in the literature. I don't think I'm saying anything controversial. We know that COVID caused a lot of atrial node dysfunction and atrial fibrillation. It's in the literature, reported at major universities. Yep. So now we've got, and there were a lot of sudden cardiac deaths during that time.
Sure were.
Right, in young populations.
Athletes.
Young athletes. Yep. Yes, exactly. So this younger issue, I think it's even more important that we're teaching people look, we just don't create a lifestyle. I'll give you a good example. If you go to Italy, how many people come back to Italy and go, oh my gosh, I was so relaxed there.
I had never got sick with any of the food.
All that, no preservatives, no GMO, right? All that stuff. But the point being is, you go to other cultures, and I don't know if it's just because they're older cultures. You had cultured civilization for thousands of years.
You're teenagers.
Right.
You're instinct, essentially.
I think
or
that's
infants. Really.
I think that's meaningful. I think we're still trying to figure out how to be at peace, how to balance that stress with lifestyle.
Yep.
And I really think that's another piece of our puzzle here, is that we don't teach boundaries. We don't teach how to take care of yourself. Instead, it's real. And look, it's great. I'm not critical. I love being an American. I love entrepreneurial spirit that I have. I know
there's a back of the hand of it, though.
There is a big back of the hand of it, where I know for me, I had to learn. I mean, look, I had to learn the big way. I mean, not a lot of people have written, 26 real books, 20 ebooks, 200 articles.
No AI.
No AI. No AI. It's really interesting now. People ask me when I hand in an article, was any AI tools? I was like, well, yeah, all my data is in my own private AI. It's all my information. But the point being is, I think there needs to be, in addition to presidential fitness that got reinstated, which I think was really important to help people learn that they have to move. I think we need to help people learn how to deal with stress.
Yeah.
As a core concept. I mean, I really think it's important, because
from a young age.
From a young age, because I know for me, different people can handle it different. I don't really have that bad of a stress response now, but when I look back, because I did 10 years of Tai Chi.
Yeah.
I learned how to breathe deep.
Yeah.
I understand how to not get too excited or to run my adrenaline. But a lot of people just, they are under a tremendous amount of stress. And sometimes it could just be hormonal. Think of for example, for women in particular, progesterone levels get low.
Right.
I mean, it protects the myelin sheath. It really helps.
Kind of an anxiolytic too.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
calming hormone.
Exactly. And it needs to be in balance with estradiol, which for me is, how do I protect my brain? How do I protect my blood vessels? And how do I protect my mitochondria?
Yep.
And then, of course, don't forget about testosterone. All those baseline things like measuring hormones. A lot of people, when their insulin levels start to get higher, so I always measure insulin. By the time you have fasting insulin of 10 in your blood test, you're probably sympathetic dominant, because insulin increases adrenaline and noradrenaline.
Yep.
And that's why all pre-diabetics and diabetics have some bit of heart disease. Their blood pressure's going up, right? If you're a metabolic syndrome person, resting heart rates are high, they're obese, their moods are off, right? They're a little more agitated, they can start to get flat. And I just think that if you can start to really do something basic. So if we think about everything we've talked about, and we can talk about supplements in a second as to what could help. But the biggest thing is, I go to medical conferences and I ask healthcare providers when I'm on stage, how many of you know your morning and night blood pressures?
Yeah. Hardly anybody raises their hand, right?
How many?
It's just,
they don't do it.
Yeah.
How many of you know your 2-minute heart rate recovery? How many of you know your resting heart rate?
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing how many. A lot of times they end up making a comment like, what am I, at a plumber's convention?
Yeah.
No, is the mic on? I mean, what's going on here? Because I think that, once again, as our body operates as a system of systems, these are foundational. Your nervous system interacts with your immune system. It interacts with your gut. It interacts with your hormone production, right? Once you're sympathetic dominant and your hormone receptor activity, 100%. Cortisol competes with testosterone. The more we drive this sympathetic output, the more we see the downward spiral. We're entering the funnel of chronic illnesses. And I'm not here to tell you that if you just meditate, it's going to all go away.
It's helpful.
But it is helpful.
Yeah.
It is helpful to learn how to breathe. It is helpful to understand your blood pressure. And I should probably start walking, start moving.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that too, because you've said a lot that I'm just like, that I want to talk about that. Oh, I want to talk about that. But I've been working over the past year a lot with policy groups that help write policy for, and I got the insider before it was released, new dietary guidelines, which that's a whole nother conversation that isn't for this.
They're interesting.
They're interesting.
They're interesting. Some great things and some things that probably need a little more thought.
I kind of understand what they're trying to do. But one of the things that was interesting when they showed me kind of the inverted triangle and what they're doing and everything. And I'm like, can I show you the Mediterranean food pyramid?
Yeah.
And the thing on the Mediterranean, one of the visuals of the Mediterranean lifestyle pyramid is the base of the pyramid, the biggest, widest part of the pyramid, before they even talk about food, it's body movement, cooking and eating with family, community.
100%.
That is such a key piece that is missing in this whole conversation. And again, you mentioned it because you talked about, has anybody gone to Italy and da-da-da? I mean, it's part of the lifestyle.
Right.
And I think if we can, and we've gotten really, our culture is really bad at that. As you know, we've talked about that. So that's a huge part of it. And it shouldn't be a stressor. I mean, we had,
It's stressful. We're going to eat dinner tonight together.
Exactly.
Oh my God. How are we going to talk to each other? Wait, I'll text you at the table.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's just, these are just things to kind of think about and to close the loop on the young people too, which is again, a whole nother show of talking about the stressors. And we've talked about it in the past, but in our kids and our teens, we're keeping them too busy, and just the pressures we put on them, and how schools are not designed for those brains. There's so many ways we could go with that.
Yeah, there's maybe we should try to nurture our kids. And you know what? It's interesting because what we have the mistake of is that we think of kids are little adults.
Yeah.
And they're not. They're not
like
little
women
adults.
think men are hairy women. It's not the same.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good one. No, I honestly, I used to watch this when we were living in California, and my son was an elite athlete. But at the same time, I pulled him back. Like, there would be children that were going to a workout coach, training an hour and a half before they would come to practice. And first of all, let them be creative. Let them be nurtured. Let them recovery. Yeah. Let them recover. And then what we do is we tell them, don't exercise, only an hour a day. My God, if you're an athlete in that kind of world, you're 3.5 hours a day. Yeah. And then, you've got to get perfect grades, so you're going to stay up late. And you can see children just break down. One of the things I want to bring up that I think is interesting on the movement side, because I think, for kids, if they're in activities, I think they're getting moved too much. Yeah. They're not getting enough time to recover. And by the way, the food that they're eating in order to recover, is just really poor food, right? In general. But hey, they can drink an electrolyte drink that's got 32 grams of sugar, and that's going to make it all better. Right? And a bunch of dyes. But one of the things I really wanted to touch on was the fact that you realize how much movement's been taken out of our lives.
Oh, yeah.
I did this the other day, and I didn't realize it. And you may have heard me talk about this. So I've been wearing these devices. And when I work out, I'll get to an activity level of, say, a hard workout, 16 to 18 activity level, which is pretty good. I bought an electric lawnmower for my backyard because I recently had moved. I have this backyard that's gated, and I bought a 0-turn radius mower that doesn't fit through the gate, which was great because there's a bunch of other yard that it needs to be in anyway, so it's good because we got a fair amount of yard. But I thought, I'm going to just buy a mower and I'm going to walk this probably 1/4 acre off. Not that big a deal. I looked at the yard and went, it's kind of like the yards I used to cut. But none of us, so I bought a push mower and an electric one, but I don't use the power engagement. I manually push it. So by the time I manually pushed that mower, and did the weed whipping and cleaned up, my activity level was equivalent to me going in the gym and doing a busted out workout.
Yeah.
But
it's like a paleo workout.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right. But nobody pushes a mower anymore.
I know.
Nobody even goes to the grocery store.
Sell push mowers anymore?
Yeah, they do. They're there. Come on, I got one. But my point is we get our groceries delivered to us.
Yep.
I think for a lot of people, it's a challenge to get 3,000 steps a day in.
Yep.
Much less. If we want to be realistic, if they could even get to 7,000, at 7,000, there's a defined benefit.
Yep.
I mean, you got to be able to move.
These are just the things that we've talked about so many times, park further away, walk in, take the stairs instead of the elevator,
Turn the weight gauge on at Whole Foods, right? They've got the weight gauge on those now, right? Put the weight gauge on. But no, I mean, I honestly, but that's a part of why our nervous systems are broke.
Right.
So once again, when you think of everything that we're trying to accomplish in healthcare, you mentioned it, when you look at the high centurion count societies,
yes,
it's community, sitting together, eating, movement. It's important. They're moving in their 80s. They're getting their 10,000 steps up, 19-degree inclines in Sardinia.
Yep.
And then it's worth.
Yeah, purpose and worth.
Purpose and worth as you're aging.
Yep.
And we kind of have taken a lot of those pieces away because we keep trying to think it's got to be the potatoes that the Okinawans are eating, or it's got to be it's the wine that the Sardinians are drinking.
I do believe that.
Oh, of course you do. Yeah, of course you do. But the big thing is, I think that all these things matter because they're less processed. But the most important thing that you, I think, brought up is that there's a sense of purpose within the family, and the family creates an extended family called the community.
Yep. And
the community takes care of each other. Yep. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we've really gotten away from that. And that by default creates isolation, creates sympathetic dominance, creates how am I going to get to my next job? How am I going to get on the road? This morning, coming in here, I had an extra hour. It was an hour and 20 minutes to get here. It usually takes 40 minutes tops.
That's crazy.
But it just happened.
Yeah.
And so you either breathe into the traffic and say, I'm gonna be here. I can't move the 700 vehicles in front of me.
Some sort of meditation recording.
I had Miles Davis on. I was playing jazz this morning. But the point being is, or you can get road rage, you can get frustrated, you can lean into the sympathetic tone. And once again, just like as we started our talk, you should try to find a way to measure these things, because you don't have to go get your blood drawn, although we do need blood tests to be healthy. We should get our blood tested. And if we're doing certain things, maybe urine, maybe it's saliva, whatever. Yeah. But it's a very simple thing.
Yeah. It's what we kind of overcomplicate it. And I think, all the influencers and social media and whatever they're promoting at the time makes the conversation more complicated too. And, I think the biggest whole takeaway, getting our mindset around the fact that the nervous system plays a huge role, probably the biggest role,
right,
in cardiovascular disease, and
that's right.
And we didn't talk much about the gut. We've talked about the gut a lot, but the gut and the gut dysbiosis and lipopolysaccharides, which are very inflammatory. So we've had conversations about that. People can listen to past conversations about the gut. But this whole nervous system conversation, so understanding, I'm going to recap for myself and everyone else. So understanding your resting heart rate, which ideal is in the 60s.
Or less.
Or less, even better.
Yeah.
You're getting a morning and evening blood pressure.
Right, even better.
You should see those evening blood pressures coming down, obviously, right?
I'm calming down just from you talking about this. My heart rate has just gone down another notch. It's amazing.
And then heart rate variability being mid to high, which is, what's a number there-ish?
Depends on your age group, right? So like if you're in your 20s and 30s, you should be having 50s and 60s minimum. Higher if you're highly trained. You could be up in the 80s, even 100. As you're aging, those are dropping down, 50s to 40s, 40s to 30s are being acceptable.
Yep.
I would love to see people in my age group to have a HRV in the at least like 50s would be really ideal.
Yeah.
With a nice resting heart rate in the 50s to go with
50s,
it.
50s.
50s,
That's
50s.
Great.
Yeah.
So, and then of those things, nervous system, which leads to, your resting heart rate, your heart rate variability, and your lowest heart rate being in the early hours of sleeping and all those things. Some easy things we can do to correct that would be box breathing, deep breathing, meditation, recognizing sympathetic tone, paying attention to when we're feeling revved up, like the foot on the gas, and taking a conscious effort to getting our foot off the gas, whatever that looks like.
Right.
And then until we master those things, there's probably some good nutraceuticals that we could kind of talk about for to kind of as a stopgap solution until we master some of these things.
Yeah.
So let's wrap up with that.
Sure. So phospholipids, phosphatidylcholine, phosphatidylinositol, phosphatidylethanolamine.
Where do you get
phosphatidylserine? You can get them in, eating, foods that are rich in that, things like eggs. But I think today, because a lot of people, their diets are so skewed, and who knows the quality of food, probably a good idea.
People are not eating hardly.
That's the other piece, not even eating, right? I would take a phospholipid. You can take it either in a capsule. I use a powder that I put in with a protein drink that I drink each day because it's easy for me. But the reason phospholipids are important is they build phosphatidylcholine, phosphatidylinositol. They build and lead to acetylcholine, which is what runs your parasympathetic nervous system. So you get to build your acetylcholine level. The other reason it's important is that when you're under sympathetic tone and your mitochondria, which are the powerhouses of your cell, get banged up, the other phospholipids help with repairing the inner and outer membrane or barrier of your mitochondria. So phospholipids, I think, are foundational. If you don't have enough acetylcholine, it's a problem. I remember, quickly doing a study where we did what was called a functional MRI, where we did a tracer. So we injected a tracer into 10 men and women, 5 men, 5 women, and they all reported some memory loss, some stress. And then we gave them phospholipids for a month and rescanned their brain with that tracer. And we found that 8 out of 10 of them improved their memory, felt less stressed. And guess what happened? Their acetylcholine levels went up, and their glutamate, which is an excitatory neurochemical that your body makes, went down.
That makes sense.
So phospholipids are real important. The next one would be, go ahead.
Well, just in a clarifying, how does NAC play any kind of role in that? Or is that totally, because a lot of people confuse that with N-acetylcysteine, and how do you do those two?
Yeah,
two totally independent things.
Yeah,
I get people asking me about NAC and their nervous system all the time.
That's good to lower histamine.
Yeah, I was going to say it has more to do with the inflammatory response, right?
Right, exactly. Okay. Whereas phospholipids are core. Yeah, it's a core nutrient to feed making the neurotransmitter that you need for your parasympathetic nervous system.
Well, and it's important to understand all these different things between what we're talking about, because they're marketed in ways that can be confusing. So that's why I kind of brought that up.
No,
you should bring that up yesterday. It's like, I'm taking NAC for my nervous system. Is that going to, I'm like, are you sure that's what you're taking it for?
Yeah, right, exactly. And then there's a couple of things to break down. One would be things like, which we've talked about before, theanine and relora. So theanine and relora, holy basil, you can almost think of those as anxiolytics. Holy basil works a little bit more on irritable bowel. That's why people drink holy basil tea, women in particular, for irritable bowel. Theanine for the perseverator, and it's good for blood pressure. And then relora for cortisol response, stress eating. But this is when your nervous system's already kind of broke.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how would I keep it intact? Now, there's the obvious thing of, well, gee, you need B vitamins to make your neurotransmitters. So, you know, all the essential nutrients are kind of important.
Yep.
But magnesium, which most Americans are low in magnesium. Yeah, they're low in magnesium.
Athletes, people that work out.
People that work out with oral contraceptives deplete magnesium. Magnesium, if you're on like hydrochlorothiazide, a water pill for your blood pressure, which is kind of funny, right? You're going to deplete something that actually controls your blood pressure.
Yeah, I know.
And that's so you can give a calcium channel blocker, which basically acts like magnesium. But it has side effects.
Yeah.
But magnesium, super important because it's going to help your blood vessels to dilate. It helps ATP production, so your energy's better. Yeah, your blood vessels dilate, has a calming effect. That's why people take magnesium at bedtime. And then there's the family of things called adaptogens. And so I've spent 40 years studying adaptogens. Like I love rhodiola, cordyceps. People hear of ginseng, ashwagandha. What do they all have in common? They actually, when you hear them they're for stress. Where do they work? They don't work on your adrenal glands, which is kind of where you make it cortisol, a lot of adrenaline. They work on your brain to help you to cope with the incoming stress and protect your nervous system. So rhodiola, for example, works on the periphery, beta adrenergic nervous system. So it helps you to keep your nervous system from overfiring in the periphery, right? Ashwagandha helps to support cortisol balance. So the adaptogens, the most valued herb in every culture since the beginning of time, every written culture were adaptogens. It was the herbs that help people cope with stress were the most venerated, I mean, literally in cultures where, medicine was part of their, almost their religion. It was venerated as the most valuable herb. So those are incredibly important. And then you can think of, back when Salank, for example, a peptide that you can use intranasally, it can be done by injection.
How well that works.
Fantastic for reducing anxiety. PE 2228, another one really good for that. But those are then the peptides can be dramatic for helping as well. Obviously, once they become available, or hopefully by now they're on their way. I think they're already on their way. But I really feel like you need to lean into nutrients.
Of course.
I think they're really important. I mean, magnesium and B vitamins are something everybody should be getting. They're essential nutrients.
Well, I'll tell you, in our office, and you're the combo that I learned about from you, that we get from you, Qui-Calm, is probably one of our top sellers. Right. Because people are so stressed out, and it has the holy basil, relora, and theanine in it all together, and taking, 2 to 3 of those a couple of times a day has just been a game changer for so many people. Right. I have literally seen biomarkers, heart rates, and blood pressures come down in my patients that are taking those regularly over time, that just can't interrupt their life is their life. Yeah. Right. And so my life is my life. What can I do to help calm this thing down? And that's an amazing one. And then, of course, you talked about ginseng a little bit, and the RG3 specifically, I'm assuming you're talking about, with another one of our top chewables that you developed, and it's just incredible. Yeah,
it helps to calm down that glutamate side. Yeah. It helps you to be more calm, but focused at the same time.
Synapsin. So mine this morning.
That's a good one. And then, there's a new one that actually we developed with a company out of France. It's called Landkind is the extract. It's a 98% Rosavins rhodiola. Now, it's interesting because we developed that for athletes because it improves tissue oxygenation. It improves their VO2 max, their lactate threshold. These are all things that if you're training, you're going to train better. Yep. People started chewing them up at bedtime. guess what started to happen?
They slept better?
Deeper sleep,
Interesting.
better heart rate variabilities.
Interesting.
And that makes sense because it's this super pure
Or do we have that available yet?
adaptogen. Yes, you do.
Okay. We'll talk about
Come on now.
Which one is it?
Endure O2.
Oh, we've talked about Enduro.
Endure O2. Yeah, but I've now got people chewing them at bedtime. I'm chewing
But are
them
they
at bedtime.
liposomal?
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. And it's the full strength dose that was studied in a study. So you really get it into your tissues. So that's a really big one. The other one, let me go out on a limb. I'm going to get way out on a limb now.
Do it.
I'm inhaling hydrogen that's bubbling through water into a cannula. I've published on hydrogen water in Tier 1 primary referee journals. But this is a way to stimulate mitochondrial health and really clean up inflammation signaling. And I am sleeping because when I saw the device, I was talking to the inventor. I was like, come on, you're telling me I'm going to sleep better? I already sleep really good. My efficiency is pretty good. My efficiency went up from 92% to 96%, and I'm sleeping an extra hour now.
Interesting.
So it's pretty interesting stuff.
So is it just a new device where you're kind of inhaling hydrogen?
Through water, so you don't blow. Hydrogen's kind of inflammatory.
Yeah.
So it's flammable. It bubbles up through the water and you breathe it in. And like a lot of people are using it while they're getting an IV. There's if they're doing IVs for certain nutrients and those kind of things. So it's pretty interesting. But that's getting out there. I know it's getting out there, but it cleans up a lot of free radical damage. It cleans up a lot of inflammation signaling, and it starts to make sense to me. And I think, I know for me, I'm always trying to push the limits of how well can I recover from my day? Because, the harder we push, the more we need to recover.
Yep.
After we get off the show, I know the first thing you're going to ask me.
I need to get some of that. I know we talked about it last year, and then now it's kind of come up again. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Well, I really appreciate always your wisdom. It's just so great. Clears up a lot of stuff for people. I love it because every time we do a show, the next time I see patients in the clinic, they'll, okay, I have a list. You and Dr. LaValle talked about da-da-da-da-da-da. So it really does help people and sharing your knowledge. And I really appreciate you. Freddie, thanks for listening to this episode of the Dr. Terri Show. It is truly my heart's desire to help people to bring awareness to key issues affecting our health, both mentally, spiritually, physically, financially. So if today's episode was helpful to you, would you please share this podcast with others? This information is vital for helping our country heal and restore our health, and we would be honored if you would pass it along to your friends and family. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any content from the show. And if your life has been improved by the show, please leave us a review below. We would love to hear from you. See you next time.